Labor gave a lot of concessions on IR to unions and workers in the last term. Are there any in particular you think should be wound back?
Well, we're reviewing all of our policy decisions or policy positions right now. But obviously we're actively looking at what the government has done and also what it is they're seeking to do in this term of Parliament, because our focus has to be how do we empower workers to take agency and ownership of their employment arrangements? How do we enable employers to maximise the opportunity to grow their businesses so that they can increase wages and opportunity? But how do we also do it in a way that meets that?
Will you oppose legislating penalty rates then?
Andrew, I'm not going to make policy pronouncements before I've seen anything on this program. But I'd also say one of the most important things we're going to face in this term of Parliament is new and emergent challenges in the space around industrial relations. A classic example, I've spoken about this already, and I know a lot of people are still getting their heads around the challenge, is going to be the emergence of artificial intelligence and how it's going to change the structure of the workplace. And if we don't actually grapple with this and lead into this challenge, we might as a nation find ourselves very much in a position of being uncompetitive. If you look at the employment uptake of US graduates that are exposed to AI, there's been a decline in the number of new US graduates that are getting employment to industries that are exposed to artificial intelligence. This challenge is coming at us. It's real, it's fast, and it's going to be one that we have to start to lean into as a country. And a lot of Labor's outdated thinking around industrial relations is based on the legacy of 19th century thinking. It's not based on where my focus is, which is building an employment environment for the 21st century.
I want to ask about the government's super tax proposal. The government argues it only affects a small percentage of the population, rich people essentially. The government would say their changes still involve a tax concession. And I've revealed this morning under the plan you could elect to pay the tax out of your super, so you wouldn't have to sell the farm to pay it. What do you make of all that?
Well, I think it's really quite cute of this government. They're now saying that under their family savings tax on unrealised capital gains, that if you pay the tax out of your superannuation, it's somehow going to make it easier. The point of this tax is it's going to force people to sell assets to pay the tax. And now they think that people have got all this cash just sitting around in their superannuation rather than it actually being there invested for the future and for future growth. But there's a real fundamental problem with this tax.
You must have some liquidity, right? You must have some liquidity there. You must have some money there as well as the assets. So why can't people pay the tax out of that super by and large?
Well, you're projecting onto people what they're doing in terms of their personal financial arrangements. That we don't have taxes like this that apply anywhere else. And this is the fundamental problem with this tax. It's based on a broken trust that many people now have with the government. Many people walked into the polling booth at the last election. They didn't think that the government was going to impose a new tax on unsold assets that was going to progressively creep into the superannuation balances of millions of Australians. We know now on the record that the Labor members of Parliament, Labor members of Parliament, turned up to community forums and said, no, this is not our policy. They then got elected and now they're going to go into the Parliament and back Jim Chalmers' family savings tax on unrealised capital gains tax in. This is a deep broken trust with the Australian community by some Labor members of Parliament like Matt Gregg and Deakin. And we've got to start to call it out because you can't have a new tax on unsold assets like they're proposing and think that they're going to get away with it.
What approach do you think Anthony Albanese should take in his meeting with Donald Trump? And do you think there should be a lift in defence spending, and how should we pay for it?
Well, of course, these are things that leaders Susan Lee and, of course, Angus Taylor, our defence spokesperson, would probably best to comment on. But I always expect Australia's Prime Minister to go into a meeting with any foreign leader and always stand up for Australia's national interest. And my expectation with the Prime Minister is to do that. But we know before the last election, our policy was that we saw a need to increase our defence spending after what we've seen is a real failure of this government not to understand the importance of defence in what the government's own white paper has said is one of the most challenging times since the end of the Second World War. So we do know we need to meet a challenge. We need deep cooperation with our allies. But how you steer that relationship is going to be one of the most important challenges of this term of Parliament. We know, of course, the President of the United States' job is to stand up for the best interest of the United States. There's a deep diversity of views about how and why he's doing that and whether he's doing it the right way. But we need to be clear-eyed about our Prime Minister doing and standing up for our national interest. And part of that is making sure we're brokering the partnerships on defence arrangements so that we can stand up for our own sovereignty as a nation. And more importantly, that we're backing ourselves as a country to have the resources we need and the defence spending we need to be able to secure that sovereignty with our allies.
Tim Wilson, thanks for your time.